Welcome back, my Duelist friends. Casual Duelist here. And I've got another deck that's actually, this one is actually updated from Lightning Overdrive. We're going to be updating Paleozoics because of our newest release with the Paleozoic Canberra Raster. I kept calling him Roaster the other day, so I do apologize. I may slip into that here again soon. One major thing we need to know about the Paleo-Traps, just as a generic, when they do summon themselves from the discard pile, they are considered 2-star water aquas. They will all be 1200 by 0 defense, and they are not going to be treated as traps when they summon themselves. They are also unaffected by monster effects when summoned by their own effect, and when they leave the field, banish them. So there's all of the things we need to know before we get into the list. So let's get into that deck. Real quick, first 8 cards, only monsters I'm actually running in the deck is going to be 2 copies Dupe Frog, 3 Ronin Toads, and 3 Swap Frogs. And this is actually pretty decent. We basically need Ronin Toad to show up first. So by either having him or playing Swap Frog on a normal summon, we can still go ahead and get the Toad to the field. That's fine, but the Dupe Frog's only job here really is to get either banished or be the one card that actually gets us into Swap Frog, because it can't actually search our Toad. So there is that. As far as our spells, we're only running 2 spells today. We're going to have 3 copies Potted Desires. Again, we kind of want to keep our extra deck intact, so no Prosperity and no Extravagance. Additionally, we are going to use a single copy of Raigeki today. Again, this is just to help you go ahead and break a board before you want to go off. And now for the ungodly amount of traps. So that would be 12 cards here. That means I'm going to have 28 traps in this deck. So just keep up. We're going to have 3 copies Compulsory Evacuation Device. Good card, great card. 3 copies Infinite Impermanence. Look, I'm only running them because I own them. If I didn't have them, these would probably be Reckless Greeds. Basically, I wanted to keep every trap card to being a normal trap card, not a counter, not a continuous, and it's just for the Paleozoics. I also maximized as far as I could on my own. I do have 3 copies Canadia. I do have 3 copies Dynamiscus. I do have 2 copies Eldonia. I have 3 copies Hallucigenia, 3 copies Leancoila, 3 copies Olenoids, and 2 copies Picala. I do not own any copies of the last one was called Morella, and I believe it is also the newest of them. And then I'm going to round out the deck to 40 with 3 copies of Torrential Tribute, because nobody wants to see that happen to them, but everybody wants to be the player that gets to play it. So that is the 40-card main. And now we're going to get into the 15-card extra, and it's all Xyz and Link. Now, one of the big reasons for the Xyz is we're actually going to skirt that one portion of the effect where it says that they have to banish the field when they leave, because technically they're being placed under these as materials, so when our Xyz monsters go away, those will go back into the discard pile, and we can try to reactivate them again. So real quick, we've got number 96, Dark Mist, 1 copy. 2 copies Anomalocaris. I don't usually pronounce these guys. So there's that guy, and then 2 copies of Opabinia, I'm guessing. Single copy Sky Centuria, and 1 copy Totally Awesome. Now, if I had a second Totally Awesome, I would discontinue the Sky Centuria. This would actually make the frog portion of the deck a little more live. The Dark Mist is also just in there because I really like the way it looks and the way that it operates for just beating down. So it was one of my options for getting over cards. But I would go to 2 Totally Awesome if I had it. For the links, we are going to run the single Appaloosa, single copy Boral Sword, single copy IP Masquerena. I'm going to run Nightmares Phoenix and Unicorn. I'm going to have 2 copies of our brand new Paleozoic Canberra Raster, and 1 copy of my Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. So that That is my 15 card extra deck and my 40 card main deck, and that's been 5 minutes. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Again, if the list was all that you came here for, again, thank you. I hope this helped you. And if it did, real quick, if you're not already, consider subscribing to the channel and maybe telling your friends if you've enjoyed this. Additionally, one last favor, and that is for you guys to have a great day, okay? So we'll see you guys on the next video. And for everybody else, we're going to go ahead and break down some of these card choices a little more in depth and give off some of their effects. So we'll see the rest of you guys later, and everybody else, let's go. So the frogs are pretty easy to understand. Dupe Frog becomes Day Frog while it is face up on the field, or Death Frog maybe. I'm not exactly sure if it takes on a French or just a phonetic pronunciation. The opponent cannot select another monster as an attack target while this is face up, and when this is sent from the field to the graveyard, we can add a frog except Dupe Frog or Frog the Jam from deck or graveyard to hand. And this is essentially just using this for Swap Frog. So again, just 2. And again, we could do this on a link. That would be fine too. The Ronin Totem is always treated as Day or Death Frog. While face up on the field, you can remove from play 1 frog in... its name is that while face up on the field. You can remove from play a frog monster in the graveyard except Frog the Jam. In order to special summon this back from the graveyard, you may not use it for synchro material. That's good. We're going to use it for Link and Xyz. And then, of course, Swap Frog. We're not really going to get the first effect off as often. Again, just a small little engine of 8 cards. However, you can special summon this from the hand by discarding 1 other water monster. So if you did start with 2, you could absolutely. And when this is summoned, you can send 1 level 2 or lower Aqua from deck or face up on the field to the graveyard. And this is how we're going to get Toad into the discard. Once per turn, you can return 1 monster you control to the hand. You can normal summon 1 frog monster during your main phase this turn, except Swap Frog, in addition to your normal summoner set. This effect can only be gained once per turn. And again, we're not going to be abusing a whole lot of that. We're really just here to throw the water monster out of our deck. And again, we're setting up one part or the other for Ronin Toad. So that's fine. Again, Pot of Desires, banish the top 10 of our deck face down, draw 2, 1 of these per turn. This is just how we're going to draw extra cards. Slightly faster than Reckless Greed, and we don't have to give up a turn to do it, so not terrible. And Raigeki, just a quick board wipe. And again, since I only had the 1 extra spot when I was at the end of the building this deck, I went with this over Dark Hole just because, again, this is at 1 and this only hurts the opponent, so I went with it. Again, with all the traps, I went with normal traps because I wanted to make sure that anytime a Paleo is in the discard pile, we are ready to go. And additionally, I tried to go with traps that will have less restrictions on when you could play them. The first of which being Compulsory Evacuation Device. This is great for interrupting your opponent. Again, if you're playing against Dragon Links, you went first, you had a little bit of setup, you got one of these. It's perfect. You see the first monster, maybe you wait for them to go to Striker and then bounce it. And again, I don't think Striker's a quick effect, so I think that they'll lose that. And then they've basically got to draw into Quick Launch or have Quick Launch in their hand in order to start their turn. So Compulsory Evacuation Device coming in handy and relatively cheap. Again, I've got some commons laying around, so... Infinite Impermanence, not so cheap, not so common to be laying around. Great either first or second. This is going to be our stand-in for Valor. So we target a face-up monster the opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of the turn that this is activated. Then if this card was actually set on the field before its activation and is on the field at resolution, for the remainder of this turn, all other set spell trap effects in this column become negated. If I control no cards, I can activate this from my hand. So, again, my opponent goes first. They go to set something up. They get to the striker, whatever. Impermanence, it's only going to really stall that 1 striker. I mean, obviously, you could still link 1 into a link 1. That would be fine. But Impermanence could still stall out my opponent, stop some critical effects. The more familiar you are with the meta in your area, the better this card is going to operate for you. And again, you can just feel free to put hand traps in this deck if you like. You don't need these. For me, I have it, Look, if I had evenly matched, I'd be playing evenly matched in here too. But because I have this and it furthers the paleo summoning, that's why we went with it. I'm going to breeze over these guys real quick because I said their effective rate at the beginning of the video, which they all share, which is literally 90% of each effect. So what you need to know is Canadia is Book of Moon. This allows us to flip a face-up monster that our opponent controls to face-down defense. Dinomischus is essentially Karma Cut. We target a face-up card on the field, discard a card, and if we do, banish the card we targeted. So then again, 3 there for spot removal. Eldonia is actually just a basic power-up, like a little battle trap. Target a face-up monster on the field, give it an extra 500 attack and defense. Then you've got Hallucigenia. This is essentially Shrink. Target a face-up monster on the field, its attack and defense become half of its current attack and defense until the end of the turn. So again, you can stack it because it is based on the current and not the original. Leoncoila allows us to move 1 banished card back to our discard pile. So again, while we're playing these properly and we are using them for link material, this is going to be what brings them back into the discard pile to get them to summon again. And then once you activate this, you're going to have brought 1, so the next trap is going to give you this and the other. So very cool there. Olenoids is essentially Mystical Space Typhoon. Target a spell trap on the field and destroy it. This one could probably be back down to 2 if you didn't want to play all 3. One that I did want at 3, but I only own 2 is Pikaia. Pikaia has us discarding 1 Paleozoic card to then draw 2 cards. So we do have in-deck draw cards that are specific to it, which is very cool. And then, of course, Torrential Tribute. One of my favorite... it's like my favorite Stop a Swarm. Again, this is like the trap version for like Nibiru. You let your opponent get as far as till like they can't chain the negate character right off the rip, like Boral Savage. Boral Savage is a great synchro monster, but in his instance of being summoned, he really only has the ability to go ahead and grab said link monster so that he can start trying to negate on summon. So even then, like, that is usually the point where I will go ahead and flip my Torrential Tribute and break as much of the opponent's board as I can on their turn. And again, after this has been activated, we should be able to get our cards on the resolution of the trap. Because it's once per chain. So no, we wouldn't want to do that, because we'd activate the Torrential, then we'd summon all the Paleos. You don't want to do that. But you could, I guess. It would just resolve backwards and blow up everything you thought you were going to do. So don't do that. The extra deck. I'm going to start with Dark Mist. Again, he's just flavor for me. If you feel like you like Opabinia, or I'm going to try this one more time, Animalicaris. Sure, I still messed it up. Then you could also buff those up too. This does require 3 level 2s. Once per battle during either player's turn, when an attack is declared involving this card or an opponent's monster, you detach material from this, have the attack of the opponent's monster, and give it to this card. This is very permanent, and it's very similar to Boral Sword. And again, I love the way it looks, and I've always been a big fan of this. I used to play this in Ojamas, and then, seeing that everybody here was going to be a 2-star, I just said, let's go ahead and let's get Dark Mist in there. Okay, so Animalicaris is 3 or more level 2s. This card is unaffected by other monster effects, as are most Paleos. Once per turn, if a trap card or cards is sent from your spell trap zone to the graveyard, except during the damage step, you may excavate the top card of your deck. And then if it's a trap, which again, most of the time it will be, add that to your hand. Otherwise, send it to the graveyard. And again, if we lose Pot of Desires or Raigeki, it's not that big of a deal. And again, if we toss the frogs, so that's where we want them anyway. So this is just perfect. And so then you get that. Okay, once per turn during either player's turn, if this card has trap card or cards as Xyz material, detach 1 material, target a card on the field, and destroy it. So then he's also spot control after the fact, which is fantastic. And again, because we're going to have the traps under him, when he peels them, they didn't leave from field to discard. they will still be able to go to the discard because they transitioned weird. It's just how it works with Xyz. Opabinia is 2 level 2s. Again, unaffected by other monster effects. You can activate Paleozoic traps from your hand, which again removes the waiting a turn. So again, we could do frogs to get into Opabinia and then hit the whole field with our Paleo-Traps. Pardon me. If this has a trap card as Xyz material, when you can detach one material, add one Paleo-Trap from the deck to the hand, using this effect only once each turn. So again, Opabinia, you could definitely maximize this to 3. Depending on which one of those you want to max. I would only suggest taking the Dark Mist out for one of those. When it comes to these next two, I like Sky Centuria, but I like Totally Awesome better. But again, I only own one Totally Awesome. So I went with an offensive option too. What this one is 2 level 2s. This cannot be destroyed by battle while it has Xyz material. At the end of the damage step, if this card battled an opponent's monster, you can detach one material from this, return the opponent's monster from field to hand. So again, this will help us out some cards. And again, this is the reason why it was still in here. And then Totally Awesome. Again, 2 level 2 Aquas. All of our Paleo cards are Aqua when they're monster. Once per turn during the standby phase, you may detach material, special summon a frog from your deck, which takes out a lot of the work. So if you needed to, you could bring Dupe Frog to give yourself a little layer of protection, or you could bring out Swamp, and then when Swamp is summoned, you could throw Ronin Toad out, which is fine as well. Once per turn, either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect, you can send one Aqua type that you from your hand or face up on the field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and destroy the card. Then you can set the card you just destroyed to your side of the field. Do not underestimate how amazing that effect is. In fact, one might say it's totally awesome. But again, with the Paleos all being Aqua and, of course, the Frogs, there's a ton of play here. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can then target one water monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. We can literally load this or any of our Paleo Xyz, and we can throw them back into our extra deck this way too. A lot of cards nobody needs introductions on. Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess. 2+ monsters with different names except tokens. We're actually summoning the trap cards, so we can use them as long as they have different names. Boral Sword is going to be more of a climb because he requires 3+ effect monsters. And again, this is so commonplace. It really is an insult if we go over his effect. IP Masquerena just needs 2 non-link monsters. And again, we can generate this, and then we can start playing during the opponent's turn as well, which is good. Phoenix is here over Cerberus because, again, I value Phoenix's back row removal over monster removal because I think there's enough ways to deal with monsters in this deck. And then, of course, Unicorn being utility and sealing any card into the opponent's deck, also a good link climb. And you will notice that it does not require effects. These guys are just different names to put them together. The Camber Rasters are going to need 2 Paleozoic monsters. There's no wiggle room on that one. I did run 2. Unaffected by other monsters' effects, you can only use each of the following once per turn. Target a set card in a spell trap zone, send it to the graveyard, and if you do, set one Paleo Trap directly from your deck. Guys, tell me the part where it says one that I control. So if my opponent has a face-down card, I can send your card, I guess. Honestly, I was just using it for my own cards when I was playtesting, just because I wanted to go ahead, get one into the discard pile, then I was going to be able to activate the newly set one. Last effect here, it can be activated, if a set card or cards you control will be destroyed by card effect, you banish this from the field or graveyard instead. So again, this is why I run 2. It's also got a little protection element. Guys, let me know if this can actually use my opponent's set spell traps. And then last card before we wrap up here, Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This is going to be our Link 5. This is, again, sort of like a kaiju. It's been a while since I went over this one, so it's 4+ effect monsters. You can also use one monster your opponent controls as material to link summon for this. If Link summoned, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. This Link summoned card is unaffected by your opponent's activated effects unless they target it specifically. And once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect that special summons a monsters from the graveyard as a quick effect, you may negate it. A little difficult to get, requires a bunch of material, and it's a little harder since all of the Paleo-Traps do become normals throughout the course of summoning themselves back, but we do have some frogs that can help us with this. We can, of course, use all of the Xyz. And the Xyz are going to make sure that, again, we can keep using the traps, cycling them properly so that when we need to go into the Link Climb to win, we can go into the Link Climb to win. So I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this today. I'm not going to do any combo videos for this one because, again, everything here is just situational. Literally just play around with it a little bit. And after a minute, it just becomes very intuitive. The one paleo I didn't have, I wrote this down here, was Morella. And it would have been a choice for me to play probably over Eldonia. And it's because when it activates, it is essentially Foolish Burial for a trap card. You send a paleo or a trap card from your main deck to the discard pile. So before I forget to mention, like that would have been my swap out for Eldonia. But thank you guys for watching. And just one more thing. I want you guys to have a great day. I'll see you guys on the next video. Later.